Good morning. I am thrilled to be able to introduce yet another combination friend and Dharma brother, Baizan or Shiso, or Christian Solorzano, a longtime member of the Sangha, a brilliant designer and an all-around great guy. So I think I'm going to leave it right there.
Hey everyone. How's it going? Good. Alrighty, let's get started. Thank you, Daigu, for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being here today. So the title of my talk was called Still Sitting. And originally I wanted to do a talk about a Leonard Cohen song, but I decided to do it on this. But I still managed to sneak in a Leonard Cohen quote into my talk. And the reason why I wanted to talk about still sitting or meditation practice is because I've been practicing meditation since I joined ZLMC in 2018. And so I've been here for quite some time now. And the practice of sitting, nothing's really changed. And I think when we practice, sometimes we think that our meditation will evolve or it'll grow, and there's aspects of it that do improve and grow. But often when I'm sitting on the cushion, it still feels like it's day one. And I think that day one is really important. You want your practice to always feel like you're beginning to meditate for the first time. So my training in meditation started with TM, Transcendental Meditation, around 2015, 2016. And I was living in Oak Park, and I would often drive down Lake and I would see the Zen Center when it was at the corner. And it took me about a year or so until I took my first meditation class here. And when I did that, I just started getting more into Zen, getting more into mindfulness. And I've noticed that some of the changes that did start to happen in my life were four things. I started to cultivate more patience with myself and more patience with others, because I think when you're sitting down, when you're practicing meditation, you have to be patient. You can't expedite 20 minutes. You have to sit there with those 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. And it doesn't matter how long they feel, you have to be patient with the time. And you also cultivate compassion towards yourself, because I think often, and these are in conversations that I have with friends of mine and with some of you as well, when you start sitting, you realize that you feel like you're doing it incorrect, or you're doing something wrong, or sometimes you get up and you think that there was a waste of time, that you did the whole thing wrong. And if you want to keep practicing, you have to be okay with that feeling of doing it wrong. So through practice, through years of practice, months of practice, you have to develop some kind of compassion and patience towards yourself. And then most importantly for me, I also believe that meditation has made me a little bit more confident, because if you're able to tolerate yourself with yourself alone, I think it allows you to be able to tolerate yourself in different contexts. So if you can be within your own in your own company for 45 minutes every Sunday, you could be alone with yourself when you're in a stressful situation. So you get a little bit more confident, because you become more aware of the messiness of your mind. And then the other point is faith. I think we all come here, a lot of us come here every Sunday, or we come here when we can, we sit when we can, and we do it not because we get an immediate reward afterwards, But we just believe that when we do this, something good will happen. And that goodness sometimes isn't immediate. Sometimes it may take, a few days, a few weeks, sometimes a few years. But you just have to have faith that meditation will work. And I remember when I was first beginning my meditation practice, I thought that I was starting too late. I'm like, that's something that you start when you're like a baby, because I'm like, when I started, I was like maybe 25 years old, and I'm like, I've lived here like in this planet for 25 years, and I've already, I'm already ruined. Like I've already, like there's no way I can learn this. It just won't work on me. But it does, and you believe it, and you read the research, and you read books, and you talk with other people that practice, and you just recognize that if you do this long enough, little tiny things will start to happen, and those little things could be super, super subtle. It could be that maybe things that used to upset you before that would grip you and not let go. You just become okay with them. And in Zen, one of the big things that we talk about is suffering. And that's sometimes when I talk to my friends about Zen, suffering always comes up, and suffering is such a heavy word, suffering. And people often think that when you practice meditation that your suffering goes away, which is a myth. It does not go away. But I think through practice, through sitting, you learn to befriend it, and you nurture it. And when it's kind of like if you have you scrape your arm or your elbow, you don't try to get rid of it, you try to soothe it, and you try to be gentle with it, and eventually it just goes away. So that's kind of a little bit about my meditation journey, and I want to give you guys that context because it continues to inform a lot of how I practice. And most recently, for those of you that have been around for the last 3 months, I've been the head trainee for this Ango period, and being in this position has been a big privilege and honor, and I think it just goes to show that when you keep showing up, you take more responsibility, and that responsibility, I think, also is a big part of practice. And that just means, how do you show up for other people? Does it mean that you lead a class every Thursday, or that you participate in service, or that maybe you volunteer somewhere? But I think we all have a great capacity to be involved and engaged in the world. And I think certainly meditation practice isn't just a selfish act. You need to go out and actually put things to practice. Otherwise, I think being out in the world is a good way to gauge whether your practice is working or not. So that's bullet point number 1. So a long time ago, I heard this term, and I tried looking it up. I even asked AI if it could help me look it up, but it couldn't. So maybe I'm making it up. But I was reading something, or I think I was reading something, and it was talking about potato meditation. Has anyone here heard of potato meditation? Okay. So the idea is that you get all these potatoes from the earth, and they're covered in dirt, and you put them all in a bucket, you fill it with water, and you kind of shake it up. So over the course of a few hours, all of those potatoes are bumping into each other, and they're kind of helping each other get cleansed. And by the time, a few hours have passed, you dump the water out, and the potatoes have kind of cleaned themselves. And I think meditation practice is important, but it is even more important when we practice it with community. So when we get together on a Sunday, or when we get together during evening meditation, or online, or even during our retreats, I think of all of us as being these dirty potatoes coming together in a pot, and then we're kind of just shaking it up a little bit, and by the time the 7 days are over, we're coming out as these like, clean potatoes. Or I also think that if the potato metaphor isn't working for you, I also think that practicing together is a way to, like, if we're all mirrors, we help each other polish ourselves so that we can be nice and crisp, so that we can see things clearly. So an example would be like, let's say you come here and like your glasses are kind of filthy and muddy. I think collectively we all help each other like shine our vision so that we can, start the week with a fresh perspective. So still sitting to me means still committing to the practice, and I think it also means still committing to each other. And when we come here together, I think like today when I was sitting, every now and then I notice that some of us will open our eyes or we'll just like look around the room to see what's going on. And sometimes I do that, and it's such a cool way to check the pulse of the room and to realize that we're all in this together. And that silence, like today I felt like the meditation was pretty strong because it was just super quiet in here, and you just look around and you see everyone showing up for each other. We could all be doing this not here. We don't need to be, we could be meditating by ourselves with no Zoom or with no community, but the fact that we choose to come here together, I think means something that is significant. So I have this quote that Leonard Cohen mentioned many years ago about meditation, and I always like to share this with friends because I think it kind of paints a nice picture for our practice. So for those of you that don't know who Leonard Cohen is, he was a songwriter, musician, and he was also a Zen practitioner, and he passed away, I believe, in 2013. So here's what he wrote. Meditation is not what you think. You sit in absolute silence and your mind starts going through all of your movies. During that process, you become so familiar with the scripts you keep in your life that you end up getting sick of them. Then you realize that the person you think you are is nothing but a complicated script you spend most of your energy on. After a more thorough examination, you discover your personality disgusts you, and that's because that's not really you. If you feel terrified enough about that personality, you spontaneously allow it to fade away. Then, if you're lucky, you can experience yourself without the distortion of that personality. All you have to do is get quiet for a moment. So can anyone share whether you feel sometimes disgusted with your personality? I feel like that's pretty common. I don't believe you, Dayton. But that's one of the things I feel like the practice teaches me so much, is that when you sit, you start going through all these scripts in your head. And you start to notice the patterns that, you're sitting down and it's like, oh, here it goes again, like Christian worrying about XYZ, and it's always the same thing. And it doesn't go away. Sometimes it might go away for a few minutes, but it feels like it's always there. And I think a big part of it is that that's just part of our conditioning. And I think if like anything, if we spend all of our time in so many years like just training the mind on this script, we become an expert at just believing all of these things about us. So mindfulness, meditation practice is a good way to recognize those patterns that come up and hopefully it lets you maybe not identify or associate so strong with them. And to me, that's one of the biggest like superpowers of mindfulness or Zazen, is being able to confront that disgusting personality that I think some of us have. Does that make sense so far? Does anyone want to share? I would love to hear, and I have like more things to talk about, but maybe right now, I would love to hear from some of you if there's anything in your practice that you feel you've become okay with, like a voice in your mind that maybe you've learned to just kind of accept as this like chatter or monkey mind.
Thank you. So, yeah, I really can't relate to being disgusted about myself, and I'm kidding. But what you said at the start about meditating, for me, when I was about a few years in, I heard Emma Children say that she's a real bad meditator, and that really changed things for me. Made me feel like I was doing things wrong.
Yeah.
So that was something I needed to hear, because I felt I just was not getting it right.
Yeah. And there's a story, a Zen story about a monk that's trying to show off to his teachers that he's figured something out, and every time he goes to a Zen master and he tries to show off, the Zen master responds with, "What a shame." And then he insists that he's solved something or figured something out, and the Zen master continues to say, "What a shame that you think that you figured something out." And I think the fact that we can continue to coexist with this small self, this self that we know isn't a great life coach, I think as long as you are able to coexist with it, I think that is kind of the fuel that allows us to continue to keep practicing. And I think what a shame it would be to have it all figured out. I think life would probably lose its meaning if we felt like we arrived at some kind of absolute fixed idea. So I would encourage you all to kind of use that I don't want to say the word disgusting because it's not a kind word, but that not so pleasant self. I think that is also part of your practice, and I think we should be okay with it and not try to push it away or force it away. Anyone else want to share something about that? No?
I think it helps me with when people put personalities upon me. Like if you're in certain roles and they want you to be a certain person in that role, but it allows you to, keep your true authentic self when you meditate.
In terms of telling myself something that I've just let myself go about, it's whenever I start to meditate at home by myself, I always say I'm going to meditate for this long. Never happens. It's always shorter. And I'm always looking at the clock. I'm restless. So just recently I decided I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm just going to sit until I'm done sitting. Yeah. And that stress was lifted.
Yeah.
So.
That's true.
Shusa, for me, the change, and again, I think you're right that I no longer feel disgusted by who I am, but I've learned the meditation has taught me to be kinder to myself, which to me allowed me then to be kinder to other people. But the thing I'm working on now, which I think is fascinating, is I'm now realizing how my sitting is part of my life and is not separate and distinct. And you mentioned a Buddhist story, but there's a story of some monk or some master who was waiting to meet this great female sage. And he's sitting there meditating, waiting. And she walks up not dressed in robes and said, "What are you doing?" I am waiting for this great person to come, and I can't talk to you now. And she goes, okay. And she walked away, and he never got to meet her. But that our meditation should help guide our lives, but not take it over. And that's been hard to find that middle way, that balance, you know?
Yeah. I often say that it's equally, just as it's important to sit, I think it's also important to sometimes not sit. And also it's important to sometimes miss some meditation days. And when I first started my meditation journey, I was so strict with myself. And I even had a app on my phone that would like track how many days I was sitting, and it would give me little rewards like you reached the 100-day badge and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes I would sit because I knew that I needed to get the time, like get that extra streak. But sometimes I don't meditate, and I think it's important to sometimes step away from the practice a little bit, because when you come back to it, it allows you to reappreciate it. And to me, it doesn't feel stale. Sometimes I think that when I'm me personally, if I'm sitting every single day, you kind of sometimes take it for granted. And to me, there's nothing as great as having a day or two off and then going back to your practice and just rekindling that love for the smell of the incense, or just like the meditation posture, just the sitting there, I think is so I'm a big advocate for sometimes not meditating, but also that's not something maybe you should say at a Zen center, but I think but I think it's important. I know earlier this year I was really busy with so many things like going on in my life, and there's like a period where I stopped coming to the Zen center, but I would think about it every week, and then when I came back, it just made me re-fall in love with everything about it. So definitely learn to be forgiving and learn to recognize that you have your entire life to practice. So so my fourth bullet point here, I wrote, there's nothing to fix. And I think a lot of us, when we begin our path in mindfulness, we do it because we feel like there's something that we're looking to fix or assemble. We want to become a better person. And for me, and for some of you guys that I've spoken with about the practice, I think sometimes what we're actually doing is we're here not so much to learn, but I think instead we're here to perhaps unlearn things that we've been conditioned to believe all of our lives. So beginner's mind is a big part of Zen practice, which is just this idea of approaching things with this attitude of openness. So I always encourage people to, when they're beginning to meditate, to not think about it as another technique that's gonna make you better, or it's gonna fix you, because I believe that there's nothing really to fix. Instead, we're trying to just strip back all of the layers that we've been accumulating. And it's always interesting when we do services, or when we read some Zen text or anything about mindfulness, you can probably all relate to sometimes reading a line that clicks with you and you instantly get it. And I think I don't take those moments for granted, because I feel that those moments are the Dharma or something pulling us toward it, because we inherently believe it, that there's some truth to that. We feel an embodied sense of connection to that. And I know when we do the Heart Sutra every Sunday, I don't understand all of it, but there are a few lines that have clicked throughout years of practice. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's important to practice and to train and to read and to come to the Zen center, is because we provide opportunities to get little glimpses of understanding that we, that tell us that we're doing something right. So when things make sense in Zen, it's because it touches a part of us. We know it's true, and meditation, I think, softens us. And sesshin, which is coming up, the definition of that is touching the mind and heart. And I think that sense of embodiment is really important. And it's so easy to become disembodied throughout, life. You could feel disembodied as soon as you leave here today, but you know that when you come back to your practice, there's like a home that we're coming back to. So yesterday, I was reading Training the Mind, the book that we've been studying with Yugatsu. And there is this word that stood out to me, and it's alaya, A-L-A-Y-A. And a very brief definition of it was not caring, being very ordinary, casual, and naive, which I'm a big fan of. I think that, and this is my friend Barry, by the way. Barry is also a graphic designer, and I think for anyone that has a creative practice, there is a sense of being naive and casual and ordinary about a creative practice that is really, really important. I think anytime that you start to latch too tightly onto notions or a sense of a fixed idea, you kind of become a little bit rigid and stiff. And when you become rigid and stiff, I think it's easy for you to crack, kind of like a branch. So, alaya, not caring, being very ordinary, casual. That's a pretty cool, encouraging way of practicing is let's be ordinary, a little bit naive. I think not knowing, this idea of not feeling like you need to figure things out is crucial in meditation practice. Being able to sit with ambiguity and being able to be okay with a lack of answers, and sometimes being okay with contradictions. And I think in Zen, there's certainly a lot of contradictions. And Ungo and I, we went out to dinner on Friday, and we were talking about how sometimes Roshi Robert will give a talk, and in that very talk, he contradicts himself. But that's life. Life has contradictions, and I think learning to be flexible and being able to pivot is really important. And I think meditation helps cultivate that. All right, number 4. I wrote, knowing this, we see patterns and conditioning. So this goes back to that quote about her personality. So I wrote, knowing this sense of disgust sometimes that we feel for ourselves, we recognize the patterns and we could understand the conditioning and neuroses, and perhaps we can start to recognize that we are not much different from everyone else. And maybe, if we're lucky, we can stop playing victim, because a lot of us like to play victim because it feels good sometimes, right? Sometimes it feels good to blame others or to believe that we are right. And sometimes we are, and unjust things still happen. But we learn to trust that everything that happens to us is an opportunity to grow or to learn. And one of the things that I'm still kind of struggling with in my Zen practice is trying to understand why terrible things happen in the world. I don't know if anyone heard about that awful story of that 26-year-old woman that was on the train that was set on fire. Luckily, she's still alive. And I think, for example, when we do our Sunday service and towards the end we mention the names of the people that are sick. We mention the names of the sick list or the names of the people that have passed away. Through sitting, I think we can also allow us the opportunity to also grieve and to process the things that happened. Because I think whether you know it or not, when we read those terrible headlines in the news, we carry that stuff with us. And whether we read it and then we go on about our day and we're working and doing things as usual, I think that stuff affects us in subconscious ways, and it might make your body feel tense, it might make you disengaged, or maybe it might make you just feel closed off or upset or feel hopeless. And meditation, I view it as a great way to just give yourself that space to process and to grieve. And it's not only to grieve towards awful things that are happening out in the world. I think it also is an opportunity to grieve for sometimes the things about us that are changing and things that we're losing. And I think about myself as I, get older and get more responsibility, and just there's things that maybe I miss about a few years ago or whatever. Being able to also just grieve for the things that once were, and being able to recognize that impermanence that we all go through, whether that's the change of seasons or any life change. Like right now, my grandmother, she's 100 years old, and she fell two days ago, and she possibly fractured her hip, and she's too old she probably won't be able to get surgery because it would probably not be good on her body. So there's nothing I can do because she's not nearby, and I can't go visit her because I can't go anytime soon. So I think the fact that there's this part of the back of my mind that's also grieving the memories of us, going to church together, and her buying me ice cream, and all of those memories, I think are important to pay attention to and give yourself the opportunity to process them. So that's another part that I always like to mention, is just this ability to process things. Any comments so far, or questions? Anyone online want to share something? So I'd love to hear from people, why do you practice? Why are you here? And what makes you keep coming back? Because I'm always really interested in that. Anyone online?
I can say one reason I practice is I kind of have ongoing anxiety, most of my life, and it's sort of a hair trigger temper that I think I just learned from my family, and a therapist once told me, well, the reason why you get so angry so quickly is because you don't realize it. You're used to it, but your anxiety bubbles along at a 5 or 6, and then you explode to a 10, and you're like, what happened? You were already almost there. So I feel like since I've been meditating, I'm more aware of where it is. and I'm more aware of like, oh yeah, I see where I'm going. I can see what's happening right now, and what level I'm at. And that's really helped almost to the point where like, at work, there's one person that'll be like, oh yeah, Eric has a temper. I could hear him like shouting from his office. And a person who currently works with me who said, I cannot imagine you being angry. I mean, I'm not trying to say like, oh, it totally worked for me. Maybe I just became a better actor, but yeah, it's for me, this is why I do it.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Jackie?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your talk. For lots and lots of reasons, but one reason is just the quiet. I get overstimulated pretty easily, but just enjoying the quiet, just being in it. I love that.
Yeah, I think the I was just gonna say to add to Jackie's comments, I also feel like that quiet and that stillness, that sitting is such a luxury, even though anyone, like, it doesn't, we can do it wherever we want. I do feel like it's this underrated luxury that we have access to. And unfortunately, there are so many excuses for why, people can't make, 20 minutes out of their day to do it. But when you do it, I do feel like it's a great privilege and luxury to be able to take that position.
Yeah, I think to your question, one of the reasons that I come here is less about meditation than it is, I really enjoy the community and the community knowledge, because I, like many people, we tend to get caught in our own thoughts, and we don't think there's much else out there. But every time I come here, I learn that that's not the case, so that's worthwhile. Real quick, my first meditation experience probably 20 years ago. And I won't bore you with the intro, but we went down to the Wat Damaram Thai Buddhist temple on 75th in Harlem, and I had never meditated before. So a friend or somebody told us to go down there, and so we did. And I felt like I had entered the Super Bowl of meditation. And it was in a big, the facility is a grade school, and so there's a grade school style gymnasium. There's a Thai Buddhist monk sitting up there, perfectly still in robes, and the meditation went on for 2 hours. And I was thinking to myself, this isn't going to work. And why did I do this? Fast forward to the end, and we were talking to somebody afterwards, a Westerner, and she said, oh, well, you don't have to stay for the whole 2 hours. You can stay for an hour. You can stay for 15 minutes. Yeah, but the monk, I don't want to get the monk mad. He doesn't care. He doesn't even care if you show up. So it got better after that.
Anyone else?
I'll share. I started meditating in 2020. And anybody who wants really to start a great meditation practice, my suggestion is always hit rock bottom spiritually, physically, and emotionally, okay? Because you're not giving anything up. And I learned from a Tibetan monk by the name of Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, who puts all of his videos on video and on YouTube. And before I met Jun Roshi and joined here, I would follow along, but he told a story that let me know it was for me. He was giving a session at the LSE, the London School of Economics, probably about 1,500 people in the audience. And he said, let's pick a food. And young Ming Rinpoche is probably less than 40 years old. He's got these little wire rim glasses, and he's funny. He's got a great sense of humor. So he's very solemn. He's in his saffron robes, and he said, let's pick a food. And they finally picked pizza. Someone came up with pizza. He goes, fine, we will all do a pizza meditation. You may think about anything you like, except pizza. And of course, I'm like, I'm going to do this. And what's the only thing I could think of was pizza. So he does about 3 minutes, rings his bell. He goes, how many people thought of pizza? Everybody raised their hand. But he started laughing. And he said, yes, that's the point. We cannot control our minds. So that's the place to start. And that's when I felt like I had a home with meditation.
Yeah, I do think that that's another misconception about meditation, is that we think that we will be able to control the mind, and sometimes we can for a little bit, and often you just kind of have to let it do its thing and just watch with a sense of non-judgments. And I think that non-judgment is crucial in practice, because it's easy to just start judging your mind for, I'm not doing it right, or I shouldn't be thinking about this, or like I only got 5 minutes left and I've already ruined the first 20 or whatever. So and even sometimes just recognizing that judgment, like just if you're judging, just don't judge your judgments. And if you are judging your judgment, then don't judge your but that's kind of pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to acknowledge the big gratitude that I have for all of you here, and I hope that you all feel equally inspired by each other to keep showing up and to keep practicing, because I do think that as long as we have a Zen center to practice at and have each other, I think it helps with accountability. And certainly for the last 3 months, knowing that Ungo is going to be here every morning to do rounds with me, that is a great sense of accountability. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone here also for just continuing to show up, because otherwise, I'd be practicing, maybe I wouldn't be practicing. So I just want to end there. So just continue to sit, have faith, even the days that feel difficult. Just trust that there's a reason why we do this. And even if you miss, a week or a few days, like, just be kind to yourself. The practice will always be there. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? No?
It'd just be nice to hear. I would just love to hear, and you've mentioned some already, but just more reflections on when you led the Ango, like how you felt you grew personally by doing that position.
Yeah, so how I grew by leading Ango.
What a great example of beginner's mind.
We do the services every Sunday, and I think I've become a little better at the choreography of things. I also, I think the way that what Ango has taught me, or the lessons that I've learned from it, have happened outside of work, or outside of the Zen Center. And I think at work I've been a little bit more confrontational and a little bit more of a troublemaker, because I've become more, like I was talking about confidence and just faith. I think coming here and studying lets you have, like I was in one of the study group sessions from a few weeks ago, I asked about what are everyone's definitions of home, I don't know if anyone remembers that. I asked, what does home mean to you? And my definition was that home is the things that you carry with you. So me having everyone here has allowed me to carry all of you throughout my day, throughout like work, for example. So anytime that I've been faced with like some kind of hardship at work or just in life, I'm reminded that I have a practice to come to, like a home to come to, and I'm reminded that everything that I learn and I accumulate is stuff that I carry with me that allows me to be more skillful. So at work, for example, and that's like usually my frame of reference is because that's a big part of my life is I've been more vocal about like when I see an injustice or when like things don't make sense or when I see that there's someone that is feeling a little bit anxious because of someone else. I'll call that person out. And next year in February, I'm going to be participating I'm going to be leading a workshop at a conference called the Conference for Art Colleges, the Art Association Conference. And I'm going to be teaching like a handful of educators mindfulness. And I think those kind of little opportunities happen as a result of doing things like Congo. And I'm a big believer that the more good you do, like you get that in return. So I just trust that by me being here, other things will happen that kind of click. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. Cool. Thank you everyone online for being here.
Thank you, Christian.
Hi, Earl.
More jokes on, but